Oh, okay.
Now we're live, people.
We're live officially.
We are officially live. At least I think we are. I feel alive.
I'm living over here. I'm living for our third episode of Talking Threadheads. Here we are. We made it. One more week. Very exciting.
One more week. We have with us, because I after all these years that I've known Nate and Nanci, I still don't know how to pronounce Nate's last name. So I'm just going to call you the Langs, because that's one syllable.
Vadeboncoeur is what we get around here, but yeah.
All right, the Vadeboncoeur family.
Yeah.
Nate and Nanci are here with us. So thank you for joining us.
Well, first of all, a couple that was greatly in demand to be on our little interview program. And secondly, the first time that we're interviewing two people at once. So here we go. Everyone buckle your seatbelts. We're not sure how this is going to go, but we're going for it. So welcome to Talking Threadheads, Nate and Nanci. How are you guys?
We're well. We're doing well.
Great.
Yeah.
Absolutely spectacular.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time to come meet with us because I don't know you guys super well. So I'm like really excited to hear your answers to these questions today because everyone else knows the Nate and Nanci story and how wild and crazy Nate is. And I feel like I'm clueless. So I hope to get to the bottom of that today. A little bit, a little preview.
All over.
You know, if we could figure it out, we could roll some videotape and intersperse it with this interview to show some of their escapades, but we'll talk about that offline.
Well, I mean, I think you're legendary in many ways that I don't understand. So take us back to the beginning. When was your first Jazz Fest, guys?
My first Jazz Fest was 1998. It was the first Thursday of 1998. And I'll take it back a step. So I was at the Super Bowl in New Orleans in 1998 with a buddy of mine, and we were in grad school at the time, or we just out of grad school. I'm not sure what it was, but we were staying with his brother at Tulane, and we were partying and having a great old time. And we watched the Super Bowl at the Kerry Irish Pub, which is a very important bar in my whole development in life. But they were like, you got to come back for Jazz Fest because Jazz Fest is like this really, really cool thing. And I was like, I don't really like jazz, but whatever, we'll check it out. And it was 1998. It was I think it was the first Thursday. And we walked in and just experienced the smells, the sounds, the sights. Everything was wonderful. I think the first band that I remember actually playing was Gino Delafos in the Fado, and trying to figure out what a Fado actually was. But I didn't really care. It was like the most amazing thing ever. We had some food. We enjoyed the day. I think Boudin balls were the first thing I ever had. We closed the day with Ziggy Marley at, I think, what was at the time the blues stage. And it was, and it was amazing, and it was just so important to me, and it was wonderful. And I skipped the next year, but then I went back the next year, and the rest is history.
Why skip a year?
I didn't have anybody to go with. Oh. It was very sad.
Oh,
yeah.
You fixed that pretty quick though.
Yeah. What's your story?
So mine first Jazz Fest was 2003. Nate and I met in 2002. And I think in at least 2001, 2002, we had a mutual friend, Allison, who said, you really should come on a long weekend trip to New Orleans with us. We go to Jazz Fest. I think you'd really enjoy it. And I'm like, I don't really like jazz. I did say that. I'm so ashamed. I'm just so, I was like, yeah, I can't believe I said that. And I knew of Nathan, and he had a reputation for being a kind of wild guy. Like, I don't know if I want to go on a trip with all these people I don't know to a place I've never been before. So then flash forward to 2002, Nate and I met. 2003, I'm like, you're the guy that heads up this trip. Now I'm in, I'm going. So, and I've only missed one since. and we won't talk about that year.
Right, right. What was memorable about that first one for you, Nanci, that first Jazz Fest?
Just walking through the gates for the first time, and it was like, holy shit, where's this been all my life? It was absolutely amazing. To your point, the sights, the sounds, the smells, it was, everything hit me at once. And I just thought it was the most amazing thing ever. And that was just stepping over the threshold. And I was all in after that.
So can each of you talk about 3 memorable performances? And they could be the same, but 3 memorable performances you've seen over the last 20 plus years of Jazz Fest?
Sure. Do you want to start?
I'll start. My first most memorable one was Elton John, only because I love all things Elton, but just the way we had to experience it with the sea of people, there was no way we were getting into that crowd. So we had to stand, what were we, outside the fence? We were actually outside.
Yeah, we were outside of the fence. We were out past the portal. I mean, we were where the paddocks, like the paddocks were.
Yeah, way out there. And I still had a great time loving the entire escapade. I didn't care. I didn't have to be up close. We all know I love my seats, but at Fest, it just doesn't matter because it's the entire surroundings that help fill the experience.
My first one, it's in 2000, I think it's 2009. And it's funny because everybody I think that was with me, I asked them and they're like, no, I wasn't there. I thought my dad was there. I thought Nanci was there. I thought Jada was there. And everybody's like, no, we weren't there. But it was Guy Clark. It was at the Fado Do. And
wearing theme with you?
Why?
At the Fado?
Well, the Fado Do, yeah, for sure. But it was a wonderful, Guy was getting old. He had cancer, but he came out and he had just an accompanist on guitar. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful set. And he played, I think, Tornado Time in Texas, which is a beautiful Guy song. And those big raindrops just start to hit and just pounding on us. And then, how that gets like harder and harder. And then all of a sudden the deluge starts and nobody moved. Nobody was like, he didn't even like acknowledge the rain. We didn't acknowledge the rain. We just all sat there and just had the time of our lives, and it was very incredible. And I think it was the end of the day. I think Les Lobos was playing on another stage, and I'm not sure who was playing elsewhere, but there was a lot of other things to be seen, but I had the time of my life at the Fado Do, apparently alone, just enjoying the rain and Guy, and I'm a big Guy Clark fan, and it was wonderful.
Sometimes experiencing those yourself with no one around you is magical.
And that's
Absolutely. So another one for me that was memorable, and I would be lying if I said I knew who was playing, was the first time I actually discovered the Economy Hall 10. Doesn't matter who's playing. I watched everyone do the second line and I walked in and I stayed there for the entire set. And I wish I knew who was playing. But I can't. Yeah. It was just great. I think I was definitely on my way to somewhere else, and something catches your ear and off you go. You just like float through the air with the music, and that's where I landed. And I had a great time.
Let's just say Mr. Eddie had a second line. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I love those experiences at Jazz Fest where like your ears lead you to opening kind of your eyes a little bit, right? And like, it doesn't matter. Like the name doesn't matter. I mean, it's nice to know who it is, of course, because we care about music and we want to be able to look it up and talk about it later, but it doesn't matter. You're like, wow, I'm here. This is fantastic. I would have loved that Guy Clark set, by the way. I love the way you described it. I wish I had been there for it. And Elton John, I ran away from because I was just so scared of the crowd.
Yeah, it was.
I ran the other direction. I'm serious.
Did you guys say you were out by the paddock? Is that what I heard?
We were way past, where like the Miller Lite tent is now and stuff.
That's like the little chief tickets, right? I mean, you had
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
one you
that's
pay
really
like
funny.
$5 for or something.
When the wind blew just right, you could hear Elton John singing and it was magic. Can I do one more? Can I do one more?
Of
That
course,
wasn't
yeah,
exactly
we'll allow
Jazz Fest,
that.
but it was during Jazz Fest. We were riding around one day with Shamar Allen. I don't know if you remember this or not.
I do.
I
Yep.
was riding with, we were riding with Shamar, just hanging out. And I asked Shamar, who's, gosh, I hope everybody that's listening, I hope you know who Shamar is. He's a wonderful trumpet player, one of my best friends on the planet. We were just riding around and I asked him who his favorite trumpet player on the planet was. And he said, Leroy Jones. And I was like, is he still, like, does he play? What's going on? He's like, I don't know. Let me find out. And he picked up his phone. He's like, Uncle Leroy, are you playing anywhere this weekend? He's like, yep, I'm playing tonight, Cafe Emily, with a guy named John Boutte. We're like, oh, well, that sounds fun. Can we do that? And we all went to Cafe Emily, and we saw John Boutte, and we were with Lisa Corona, and some other folks, and we're sitting outside at Cafe Emily. It was beautiful. And they played Louisiana. They're trying to wash us away. They're trying to wash us away. And we're sitting at the table, just bawling our eyes out. Shamar's like, what is wrong with you people? And a little Threadhead thing, John Boutte became very important for Threadheads in a lot of different ways in the future. And, Leroy Jones as well, and Shamar as well. That was I'll never forget that evening.
Absolutely a Jazz Fest moment that wasn't at Jazz Fest, but during the trip.
Yeah.
So that counts. That absolutely counts. Yeah. And that was actually great because I put in the third one. So
I think we're on 4 now. So
okay.
We did it. Yes.
Wonderful.
I love that.
Listening to you guys is like watching Sonny and Cher, just sort of like the banter and stuff between the two of you.
I get crispy.
So tell us about what's your routine like when you go to Jazz Fest? First thing that you do, whether it's first thing like on your way to the fest, on the way to Fairgrounds, or once you get through the gates. You guys pick. Tell me what's the routine.
Well, first is lasers, right? You absolutely make a stop there for however long, whether you make it for one drink, a couple hugs, it's always, you pass it on the way in. That's first. And then when you get into the Fairgrounds.
The Sauvage Gate, right? We always, not always, but as a rule, you try to go into the Sauvage Gate. And it's, you hear the drums, you hear the gospel from the distance, and you see that one big archway, and you start to smell the smells. And what we do is make a beeline to Mina's. You're walking past the gospel tent, you're walking past the what is that called? Jazz and Heritage tent.
Yeah.
We die and then you go to Ms. Lena's, load up on hugs again, load up on drinks again. And then the day begins, and then that's when I usually look at the cubes for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize the night crawlers are playing today. Because I don't like to plan ahead so much.
No, we stopped doing that a long time ago because, as everyone knows, your plan goes right out the window once you set foot at fest. Your best planned intentions go out the window for the best reasons. So if it's a Friday, we would always make, after Ms. Lena's, go to the Zadaran's Cabin, which is the food demonstration right outside the Fairgrounds, and sit there and wait for the crawfish demonstration. We started that tradition many years ago. Let's see, 18 years ago? I don't think it was my first one, but anyway, long story short.
Pretty close.
We ended up coming dear friends with the Zadaran guys, and then that's how they segued into Zadaran's being a sponsor of Threadheads. But that was for every Friday, first and second Friday. It was the first thing that we do.
So you guys have seen the schedule, the tentative schedule. what are 3 must-see New Orleans bands and 3 must-see non-New Orleans bands?
Well, at the time of publishing, there are still hundreds of bands or hundreds of acts yet to be released. So I don't know if I can answer that very well. I will say that personally, I like to, I'm sorry, we've got cats like dashing around and stuff right now. I love to see, you know, the older school musicians from New Orleans. I want to see them live before it becomes a tribute to, which I don't want that to sound morbid in any way, but you know, I will never ever miss Monk Boudreaux when he's playing live. I will never miss Irma Thomas when she's playing. I think Deacon John is playing this year. I mean, those are people that I have to catch when I'm in New Orleans, because that's stuff that just doesn't exist anywhere else.
I would absolutely go see them as well, even if it's just to catch a couple songs they are trying to must-sees. Of course, you know, I love my boys, the Honey I'm Swamp Band, so I will go see them wherever, whenever they're playing for local. And I try to never miss John Boutte, but boy, when he's in the tent, it is just getting near impossible to get close to him because he's just so darn popular. But again, I don't care if I'm on the outside of the tent, it doesn't matter. You're still there.
That's a great attitude to have, because sometimes that's just what happens, right?
That's as close as you're gonna get.
Yep.
But that's actually a Jazz Fest pro tip. It's much easier when you go to Jazz Fest by yourself to snag one single ticket in the crowded tents, as opposed to trying to find 2. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, no, that's a pro tip for sure. As a person who often goes to Jazz Fest and spends some time by yourself, I love it. I'm kind of small. I can just sneak into things and nobody's gonna, like, you know, I don't have a whole entourage behind me. It's just me. Hi, excuse me. Sorry, I'm late. Ooh, just me. It's great.
Well,
Anyhow, enough about me.
We're very, very huge people. And it's very awkward, you know, stepping in front of people.
Everyone can see over our heads anyway, right? Doesn't matter. In fact, sometimes we've been welcome.
But Nate, you get the thing of, oh, gee, you look like George Clooney.
You know?
Yeah. Well,
So,
I mean, right?
yeah, I mean, I got a little confused when we dialed in. I was like, wow, I didn't know we were. It's a good thing I put some eyeliner on. George Clooney in the flesh. All right, so anyhow, let's pivot a little bit to the Threadheads, of course, right? That's how we all know one another. So how did you learn about the Threadheads, and when did you get involved?
I learned about them when it was my coming up to my first fest, and Nate was just trying to help me get acclimated and help figure out the scene. And here are some people that he's been lurking with on for years, right?
Yeah, I want to be very clear about that. I was a lurker. I had never interacted with the Threadheads. I followed everybody from the Pet the Cat days, you know, Swag, Mean, Ohio, Brian, you know, Barry. All those people were just like heroes in my eyes. I was very shy. I said Swag. Yeah, I did say Swag. Like all those people that were just so helpful to me, even though I wasn't really interacting with them. I was just reading stuff that they had, you know, put forth and advice that they had given, and you know, Neen's grids and everything were just so important to me. And I would explain that to Nanci and our other friends that would come to Jazz Fest from, you know, when we were in Rhode Island and stuff. But I would never interact because I was petrified. I was very, very scared. And then Nanci was like, why don't we just talk to them? And I'm like, we can't do that. And you know, and that all happened. So.
Yeah, they were just such a wealth of information that I wanted more. I wanted to understand what I was getting into. And they could not have been more helpful and kind.
Well, like, I really get that sort of like respect for folks who like, you know, kind of got all of this, not just rolling, like they are sort of this organization, Chris Joseph being a part of that as well. And like, I think that's why Chris and I are doing this whole thing right now. Like, this is a really unique situation, I think, that, you know, isn't common, like having these folks who are passionate fans of not just music and like hanging out and partying and whatever, but like so connected to the, like supporting the culture in a way that makes a difference, that matters, that isn't just about them having a great time, that's truly about trying to connect people who care with things that are worth caring about, right? So I think that's why he and I are like really diving into doing this and trying to document all of these really cool folks, including you guys, because a big part of this whole Threadhead thing these days is the Patry, right? And you guys should speak to us about the origins of that, because it's a whole monster now, right? And we're going to talk to other people who are involved in delivering the Patry to, you know, what it is today. But I want you guys to talk about what's the origin of it.
Again, I'm gonna defer to Nancy on it mostly, because we had just randomly fallen into like this really cool house that Mitchell Osborne was the owner of, and he would rent it out during Jazz Fest and stuff on Frenchman Street. And we just really loved the place, and we had some people over the first year. I think Ron Bogdanoff. I'm sorry, Ron, I can't pronounce your last name, much like anybody can't pronounce my last name. Was one of the first Threadheads I think that we ever met, and he just came over and visited. And he's like, "This is a great place, man. We should have a party here," you know. And I'm like, "Yeah, we should, but I mean that's not gonna happen. That's silly." And then Nancy, I think Nancy mulled it over for a little bit, and was like, "Well, we can make this happen." And I'm like, "Oh, that's dumb." That's crazy, man, because nobody will ever like give us, you know, money to fund it. I'm not gonna just like pay for like a party and have people come over. She was like, "Well, maybe people will just give us money and stuff." I'm like, yeah, nice job, noob. But I don't know, it just kind of like snowballed from there, right? Like,
it absolutely did. Yeah, I asked Mitchell and sight unseen of any other information of whether we can hold an event at his property, and he said, "Sure, go ahead." And we're like, "Okay, now we're off and running." So it may have been like, we may have been the nucleus of it, but it was a whole crew that helped take care of it. The first 2 years, Jen and David Rooney made all the food out of their own kitchen. They were amazing. And then the whole Patry crew, everyone pitching in and helping. It was definitely it takes a village for sure.
What year was the first Patry?
2004.
I think it was 2005 because we got the first one here.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was 2005, but not sure.
Right. No, you're right.
And it was just like, it was just the Rebirth Brass Band. I think we asked for like people to pitch in like $25 a head or something, just to make the Rebirth happen. And Jennifer had mentioned that she was a huge Kermit Ruffins fan. So I was like, well, let's see if we can make that happen too. We sort of lanyard Kermit Ruffins.
I think everyone had a great time.
Yeah.
So the next year, obviously we all know what happened in August. So the next year when we realized that Fest was going to happen, that was the first time we turned it into a fundraiser, albeit unofficially. But we gave all the proceeds to the New Orleans Musicians Clinic, and Bethany came on by, and she's the director of New Orleans Musicians Clinic, and we gave her a bunch of cash. And everyone was like, this could really be something. And again, it just took off from there. There's just so much history and so many people that were involved. I can't wait to hear everyone else's memories of it, because I love that you're documenting this, because I can't even tell you who made the typo to make it a Patriot.
Yeah, what's with that? Tell us the story.
I wish I knew, honestly. I'm hoping that somebody remembers. Maybe somebody could go back in the archives. All I know, it was a typo and we were like, that's it, it's gonna stick. Because back then there was actual time between the weekends to breathe and do things. So we're like, let's have a party.
If I had $1 to bet, I would say it was Amy Potter. Not calling you out, Amy, but it was probably you with the typo. But yeah, I mean, it just like somebody had mistyped Patry and then it stuck on the board.
Yep.
On the Jazz Fest
So we're like,
board.
that's the name because it was something special. You're gonna remember it, right? It's not just a party. Hey, we're throwing a party, why don't you come on by? No, it's a Patriot, it's a Threadhead Patry. It's perfect. And I would love to give kudos.
Was it the third Patry when somebody was like, there's somebody here that wants to get in?
Yeah. Yeah. So embarrassed.
And who was it?
Bernie Worrell. Yep.
Bernie
Wanted to
Worrell.
come, he was walking on by and he wanted to come in. So yeah, you can come on in. Absolutely.
You know, you're throwing a good Patry when
Yeah.
Bernie Worrell's like, can I come in? And you're like, yeah, you come in, Bernie. That was cool.
Those Frenchman Street Patrys to me were, I mean, they've all been great, but those were my favorites just because that house and that yard was amazing.
Yeah.
It was
Really, really
perfect. It
was.
was absolutely perfect for it. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
tell us your secrets for the Jazz Fest newcomers. What are two or three things that you would tell people who have never been to Jazz Fest? Give us some tips.
I've got one, which is what I
Sounds
tell
good.
everyone, is find your own fest. If you've come to fest with someone because they've encouraged you to join them or you've discovered it yourself, don't follow someone around. You can take all the advice you want from everyone, but wander off and find your own. Discover things that no one had mentioned to you. And then you can, in turn, pass that information along for someone else to ignore and go find their own fest.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine's very, very similar. It's literally make sure to go someplace that you never expected to go. So, you know, go to every stage, you know, geez, the Allison Minor stage, go and listen to an interview. Go and do stuff that you never thought you would do. I mean, you want to go and see the big national act and you're like a huge Jimmy Buffett fan or whatever. Go to every stage. Go to the, I made it very clear that the Fado was something I did not know, nor did I expect, and it was wonderful. Go to the Jazz and Heritage stage, go to the Lanyap stage. Make sure you budget some time to go to places that you've never seen, never experienced. Eat all the food that you never thought you would eat. And I guess I would also say that the strawberry lemonade is a really good mixer for the vodka that you know to try to smuggle in anyway. So go ahead and
Go ahead and do that.
Yeah, do that.
Thank you, guys.
I'm waiting at some point for one of our guests to give us a tip about their favorite bathrooms, but
Well,
That's me. I'll do that. Yeah.
but
I'm
again,
like,
go to the Allison Minor Heritage
Yes.
stage because
Yes.
those are damn fine bathrooms.
they're
Real.
air conditioned. If you need to brush your teeth, you can brush your teeth in there. Nobody will look at you funny. They are nice bathrooms.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. That's great.
Well, Chris Joseph, thanks for ending this interview on the topic of bathrooms.
It's my
I would expect
specialty.
nothing else.
Yeah.
With Chris Joseph talking to me, I would expect nothing else.
We
I love
go in,
you.
we
I
go in
love
the
you.
gutter.
I love you, you beautiful human.
Let's get it,
So will
Rome.
we see you guys in October?
Oh, very much so. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we have plans to come in for French Quarter Fest all the way through. So knock on
Very
Awesome.
nice.
something. Yes.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you both.
Yeah.
And that's only 2 or 3 months, right? 3 months.
We're getting close.
We're getting close.
Mhm.
Thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you.
I love you guys. I love you, Threadheads.